As we head in the first week of September, it is one of those times to really be paying attention because there's only 10 days or about 10 trading days between now and the third Friday of September, which will be that quad witching date, which is what we went over in yesterday's video as a nice turning point in the markets, typically speaking, especially for the last 8 Septembers for Bitcoin specifically, has closed, with a nice bounce coming off of that date, essentially. But in the meantime, if there is going to be downside price action, very, very likely happens, as we'll go over in this particular video. And other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's a nice little Monday morning over here. We got the last 17 hours, 4 minutes and 56 seconds left on this current sale going on right now. I will probably maybe swing back around to this later on in this discussion on this video, but first things first, let's get into the heart and the crux of this content of today. So when we are looking at statistical downside setups, which we've looked at, several things with regards to the month of September. It is no secret that September is generally speaking a down month. We do now see a 5-day volatility versus stochastic momentum setup, which is also showing a higher probability of a downside move, specifically within these next 5 to as much as 10 days, which is very interesting because within 10 days, again, that will be the 15th of September, which will be the third Friday of September as well. And there's your quad witching. So what is that to say? That means that if Bitcoin can just survive sideways here, then perhaps this September will be, more or less muted overall, maybe a slight positive gain, but basically just a trendless sideways month, which would generally speaking be good for the boo laws. But again, for these next 5 to 10 days, downside is more likely. When we look at the volatility right here, it is coming off of extreme lows, and it is, it's not really expanding anything humongously right here, but anytime that it is this low, it does warrant some attention, just because these things do pop off pretty damn fast. And when it combined with the direction of the stochastic oscillator, we get a high correlation for the direction of that move specifically. So if we go into the stats, there's been 10 of these prior setups for downside, by the way, throughout Bitcoin's full history. 8 of those have played out with major downside fashion. 2 of those were failures, meaning that they actually had some upside price action, in fact, significantly upside price action. But 8 out of 10, pretty damn good. And if we go through the data a little bit more, did take on average about 34 days, which is where alarm bells start to ring a little bit for me, because if we are likely to see a bounce at the end of this month, or at least more likely to see a bounce at the end of this month, then that wouldn't really play within the time frame of what this is expected to do. And for what it's worth, the shortest amount of time that we've seen on these particular setups was actually 15 days. So I guess maybe that could kind of work, but it'd be cutting it pretty damn close. Anyways, the average return was actually negative 35% with the standard deviation of almost 10, giving us a range between about 25 to as much as 45% basically. So how bad can things get? Well, if Bitcoin is going to continue to the downside, how do we measure this one? We measure this one from that last high to, well, wherever those stats kind of align with. So 25% down would put Bitcoin at 22,500. 35% down puts Bitcoin significantly lower, actually, at about 19,400, 19,500. So I suppose that would be worst case scenario based upon these statistics right here. But I do want to once again revisit the positioning of where the 5-day stochastic oscillator is as of right now. It is, heavily within the bearish control zone, but as you can see, it will be getting into the critical zone very, very soon, probably on the next tick, actually, meaning that generally it's going to be difficult to keep momentum this low for a prolonged period of time, as we typically do see. This is kind of like a bouncy region. Anyways, the current momentum pivot is 29,640. Very unlikely to change on this next period. Very likely to flip to the upside on this next period. But if you see within the next 3 days and 18 hours, so I believe that would be Thursday's close, somewhere around there, then either Thursday or Friday, something like that. Then if this number comes a lot closer to current price action, that would be the next sort of piece of the puzzle that, hey, this is not going to play out, and we're very likely going to see Bitcoin again try for a little bit of a bounce into the end of the month, which could even be, depending upon where volatility is at that point, it might even be like a rather large bounce, although I still have my reservations on that. I do think that best case scenario, we see like $27,000 yeah, 27,000 in September to the upside. I think that's like best case scenario if there's even upside at all. But for right now, the more that Bitcoin goes sideways, the more that it eats up time. Thus, the more that the downside setup right here is likely to be a failure, basically. So that's what's on the cards right now. But as we went over, you know, two major areas of interest, $22,500 and basically like just below $19,500. I mean, that would be pretty fucking nasty to the downside. So it is, it is serious, obviously, as that would also put Bitcoin in its first 5-day and weekly lower low, thus signaling that, you know, we are seeing a higher term time frame trend change here. But for right now, things still holding on by just one ball sack hair, one gray ball sack hair on a higher low as of right now, as Bitcoin kind of, you know, teeter-totters around about 25,800 versus that last low over here, which on the 5-day was 25 and on a weekly was about 25,700, 25,800 or so. But yep, still holding in there for what it's worth. Still actually fulfilling the hash ribbons indicator setup that we spoke about. Must have been like 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which perhaps we'll update on that soon. I mean, it's not really anything to update on. It's just, it still works, but very fucking close to not working. I'll say that. Very, very close. And if it doesn't, yeah, severe downside, very likely here. With bounces along the way, of course, you know, you're very likely to see like 24.8, 24.7 region for a nice little bouncy bounce. Anyways, moving on into some HPDR ranges, we can see that the 4-hour time frame is shifting a little bit lower. The 4-hour HPDR range lows on the 50% level is showing about 25,200. So wicks down around there. You know, could very easily occur in the short term and the near term. Something like this, or let me actually get rid of all my drawing tools because I think I have some more LARP lines on there, but something like that. And then maybe a bounce back up. Really only things change on the lower term timeframes until Bitcoin starts to close below about 25,200. That's where, you know, I'd say like more structural problems start to emerge for the 4-hour time frame. We can start to get ready for at least a move down to, you know, probably mid 24s. In fact, the next range low is actually coming in about 24,300, but that will shift around as we get more data in here. Moving on to stochastic momentum, we can see that, or I should also go over the upside as well. Top side of the current range is 26,500. So fair enough, you know, still kind of limited to the upside right there. Anyways, yeah, going over here to stochastic momentum, starting off with the weekly, which we just got a new one last night. We can see that downside momentum continues as long as Bitcoin's below 29,240 for this week. I think over here, did I have this drawn in here? No, I guess that's for the 5-day. But ultimately, again, you know, there is a bit of a trend line regression here for the weekly time frame, getting the last major lows from July of 2022, connected with basically middle of December of 2022, you know, like the current major low for this cycle. That will be coming into collision with this regression maybe at the end of this week. So again, we see another thing kind of coming in right there. 5-day time frame, same shit basically. 29.6 going to be the magical number. Closing, yeah, in about, like I said, 3 days, 17 hours now. 2-day time frame is also going to be turning actually up if Bitcoin does close above $26,000. Currently trading just like $35 below that pivot as of right now, but that's closing not tonight, but tomorrow night. So a little bit of waiting to do there. Daily time frame currently positioned to the downside. Let me see what CME says. CME actually less nasty right there, but will turn down on CME below 25,800. 12-hour time frame going to be nosediving here below 27,350. Probably unlikely to reclaim that one on the next period. 6-hour time frame going to be twisting up above 25,550. 4-hour time frame going to be also up above 25,550, and hourly time frame is going to be up above 25,920, but don't really trust that one too much right now, to be honest with you. You know, what is this aligned with? I'm going to say right now, this to me looks like it wants to go more and more sideways. You know, the more that I look at this over here, it's like, all right, we got this next 10-day period to really survive for the Boolaws if they are going to, you know, have a chance to take over. But I'm just seeing more sideways as it is. I see a lot of bifurcation and momentum oscillators. I don't see anything really shifting around much over here. And it's kind of like the same thing as before. Bitcoin spinning its wheels, but not getting nowhere. And, you know, it just makes it really fucking boring. Really fucking boring, honestly. But hey, during these times, you know, important things do happen, of course. So I suspect, you know, again, about a couple weeks here, if Bitcoin fails to move to the downside, especially specifically by the 15th of September, you're going to start to see me turn around to be a little more angled towards the upside, especially if Bitcoin can even just trade above last week's high. I think that's a little bit unlikely as of right now, but fair enough. And in the meantime, yeah, downside more likely. What would validate downside as far as a closing basis go? Like what would validate this setup over here? I think you need to see like a 5-day or even a daily closure below like 25.2. Yeah, that'd probably do it for me. There would be stops along the way, of course, but at that point, we would see a flipping of the weekly trend and the 5-day trend. And at that point, have to be looking much further down. And that's where 22.5 becomes a pretty reasonable reality, actually. So I think I'll leave things right there. We can go back into the programs over here. I'm older and grayer. There we go. Beautiful. Just 20% off of any one of the programs or products if you are interested in them. The indicators have actually gone back to a one-time purchase. We just got a bunch of complaints about that. So we decided, hey, fair enough, man. We'll listen. All good right there. And then of course the big one is the Krown Quant automation. Just allows you a YouTube script that you can essentially create all sort of strategies for. You can also base them off the quant strategies in the program. Completely fine. But I suspect that as most people have been doing, they have been using that as a base and then building up to like something just at some point just becomes pretty fucking unique, which is actually really, really impressive. So it's cool to see what people come up with. And then, you can also automate it as well, assuming that you do, your whatever exchange that you have has an API that can hook up. I think we'll leave things right there. As always, want to wish you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Tuesday.